The PlayStation 2 is home to a trifecta of obscure and expensive survival horror games. From Software's Kuon, Capcom's Haunting Ground, and Punchline's Rule of Rose, released in that order and covered on this channel in the same fashion. So I'm closing the book on some unfinished business that I started a year ago. Now, speaking of this trifecta, some people may try to include games like Fatal Frame or Siren/Forbidden Siren, make it a weird pentagon of sorts. But there are some key things that set these three apart from those other, also slightly lesser known PS2 horror titles. For one, Fatal Frame and Siren were generally well received and both went on to launch their own series, no matter how foundering or short-lived. And for another, they also had some novel approaches to gameplay that shook up the usual survival horror formula. On the other hand, the Unholy Trinity, as it's been called, stayed pretty much inside established survival horror gameplay conventions, and were also, for the most part, critical and commercial failures. Let's just get this out of the way. None of them are good games. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy exploring them and making videos about them, but even I have to admit they were excruciating to play at times. Especially Rule of Rose, the subject of this video. I found some enjoyment in Kuon's magic system, and I thought Haunting Ground did the run and hide clock tower style gameplay fairly well. The addition of Huey the dog as a companion also made it more bearable. Rule of Rose, though, is definitely one of the worst survival horror games to play. Not even the dog can save it. But as was the case with Kuon and Haunting Ground, it's the atmosphere, the story, and the characters that elevate it above its gameplay. A game being bad has never stopped me from discussing it and picking it apart, because I love these games, despite their best efforts to stop me from doing so. So with that being said, what is Rule of Rose anyway? Well, it's a game with cruelty as its central theme. There's much suffering to be had here, both for the characters and the player. So let's unpack the cruelest of survival horror games, Rule of Rose. Rule of Rose is a survival horror childhood trauma simulator, developed by Punchline and released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2. Punchline was made up of developers from the then recently defunct studio Love Delic, who in turn had split off from Square. Love Delic developed 3 games during their short existence. You may have heard of at least one of them because it finally got an English localization a few years ago, Moon Remix RPG Adventure. But they also developed UFO, A Day in the Life, and LOL, Lack of Love. All 3 of them have similarly kooky reputations. After LOL's release, Love Delic closed up shop, and Punchline began shortly after. They developed only 2 games, Tulip, a game where you go around kissing other characters in an attempt to get them to like you, and Rule of Rose, a game where you go around finding presents for other characters in an attempt to get them to like you. That's about the most basic outline of Rule of Rose's premise I can make, but it is funny how remarkably similar the design of the 2 games are when you break them down like that. Love Delic's output and Punchline's first game, Tulip, were mainly quirky life simulators with novel gameplay mechanics that usually involved completing short side quests. There were overarching stories, but the emphasis mostly lay in creating a cohesive world with NPCs who had their own schedules. So where did Rule of Rose come from? Well, Punchline was tasked by Sony to create a horror game, and they jumped at the opportunity to do something different. They wanted to create a psychological horror focused around childhood, with their main inspirations being the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm and Silent Hill. The story they came up with for Rule of Rose is a tangled thicket of past and present, memory and illusion. It's a tale that leaves much to interpretation, but is also highlighted by scenes of raw physical and psychological trauma. And due to that last detail, the game was subject to banning and censorship, specifically in the UK. This all came about thanks to an article originally run in an Italian magazine that completely fabricated details of the game's story, and, on top of that, plagiarized parts of a review from a forum post by a user who received a Japanese copy of the game before its Western release. By the way, just last month, September 2024, a whole cache of sealed copies of Rule of Rose were found in storage in Italy. Apparently the game was shipped there before all the moral panic shenanigans happened, and the copies were left abandoned. They're now available through various online sellers, but this has only marginally decreased the game's value. But anyway, I'm not really interested in any of those outside conversations for the purposes of this video. I'd rather look at the game on its own terms. This was my first time playing Rule of Rose. It was also my first time experiencing Rule of Rose. What I mean by that is, I've long been interested in the game, so over the years I've intentionally read and watched as little about it as I possibly could. So all these other videos, I haven't watched any of them. But in truth, I approach all the games I cover on this channel the same way. A lot of them I've already played in the past, but for the ones I haven't, I intentionally avoid any reviews or essays, written or in video format, until I've completed the game on my own and written down my own thoughts. I just want to capture my genuine reactions to the game, and I want my opinions to be completely my own, uninfluenced by anyone else's. If some things end up matching with what others have said, well, that's just inevitable when analyzing any sort of media or art. There are always objective truths, so for you, the viewer, there may be similarities, but for me, the creator, I want my experience to be as isolated as possible. So for Rule of Rose, I played through the game twice. The first time, I mostly paid attention to the experience of playing it. Story is the main focus here, but I just let it kind of wash over me. I watched it happen, trying to piece together its disjointed turns, but ultimately I failed to pull it all together that first time through. A lot of the narrative doesn't start to make sense until the end, so I think it begs a second playthrough, even though the gameplay made it so that I really didn't want to do that. But I did, because I felt like there were narrative details I was missing. And oh boy, were there. Rule of Rose has a story that isn't told in chronological order. It also isn't forthright with its meanings. Several of its plot points are intentionally vague, open to interpretation, and heavy with symbolism. Because of all of that, I really have to spoil the game's story in this video. I don't think it's possible to have any meaningful discussion about Rule of Rose without going into extreme detail. Part of its brilliance is how it keeps the player so off balance on a first playthrough, when you don't really know what the hell is going on. And there are so many tiny details and clues to the larger narrative that are shown pretty much from the opening shots of the intro cutscene. So I know this is algorithm suicide, but if you would like to experience Rule of Rose completely on your own, I suggest stopping the video now so you can get the full effect by yourself. For those who are curious to hear a bit more, in the next part of the video I'm going to talk about the first two parts of the game and detail my thoughts on Rule of Rose's presentation and gameplay. This section will contain minor spoilers, but nothing that's going to ruin the overall impact of the story. After that, I'll give another warning for major spoilers, and the rest of the video will focus completely on analyzing the game's narrative. The chapter titles of this video are also marked with minor and major spoiler tags, so you don't get anything mixed up. So it's up to you how much of this video you want to watch. I think it also goes without saying, but Rule of Rose is filled with disturbing and sensitive subject matter. It's actually very restrained with what it depicts on screen. Many things are implied rather than shown, but still, those implications are unsettling. So, viewer discretion is advised. If you want to stick around though, let's get started. It all begins with the pre-title screen cutscene, which is almost 7 minutes long, so I'm not going to show it in its entirety, but it contains several important clues that naturally won't make sense until we've completed the game. The cutscene begins with a 19-year-old Jennifer waking up on a bench in the middle of a sunny park. She's approached by a brown Labrador retriever. We'll later find out his name is Brown. Before petting Brown, Jennifer is distracted by the laughter of two little girls playing among some rose bushes. When she returns her attention to the dog, he's vanished, and a large airship passes by overhead, casting a shadow over the whole scene. We then see it pass over a building that we'll come to learn is the Rose Garden Orphanage. Next, we're introduced to the Aristocrats Club, a group of orphan children. Again, a lot of this isn't going to make sense until much later, and we'll come back to examine some of the finer details here. Jennifer is then awoken by the dog and finds herself alone in a strange indoor area. As she timidly explores the place, a man watches her from the shadows. Jennifer presents something for the dog to sniff and follows him as he tracks the scent. This is actually introducing us to a major gameplay mechanic in Rule of Rose. We'll be using Brown's sense of smell to find items throughout the game. Brown eventually leads Jennifer to a key. As they explore a new area unlocked by the key, they come upon a bathroom, which more astute viewers may notice looks shockingly similar to the bathroom of the orphanage that we saw earlier on in this cutscene. Jennifer approaches the only closed stall door, but before she can investigate, footsteps in the hall cause Brown to go alert. While she's distracted, the man from earlier pops out of the stall and grabs Jennifer. We then see an abstract scene of Jennifer falling into darkness, ropes wrapping her body, and small childlike hands grasping for her. There are several scenes of an adult Jennifer being bullied and tortured by the Aristocrats Club. Finally, Jennifer is back in the park, in the rain, clutching Brown, as a giant fish floats through the air and heads toward the orphanage building. A strange sight, but this isn't quite over yet. Next, we see the two girls Jennifer saw earlier, in the rose bushes, making a promise.
My name is Joshua. I will serve you, princess. Just kiss me, please.
Remember the name Joshua. After this, we finally reach the title screen. It's clear from the cinematics that Rule of Rose is a gorgeous game, which comes as no surprise since it is a late title in the PS2's lifecycle. The PlayStation 3 would be released just a few months after Rule of Rose hit the shelves. Developers at this point had figured out how to wring everything out of the PS2's graphics synthesizer and emotion engine CPU. The mid-2000s produced some of that generation's prettiest games. Rule of Rose's character models are detailed and expressive. The movement and facial animations especially are just so good. The devs use motion capture, but still, I was in awe of how some of the characters twisted and contorted their features. It's the right balance of realism and stylization, with character designs that feel distinct. Right now, we've only caught glimpses of the other characters in the opening cutscene, but we'll soon see more of them, and their designs perfectly fit their personalities. Starting a new game drops us into yet another cutscene. We join Jennifer on a seemingly empty bus, but hold up. Let's rewind here a little bit. The sign on the bus says it's headed for Cardington, a village in Bedfordshire, England, which was known in the early 20th century for building airships. Anyway, it turns out Jennifer's not alone on the bus. A young boy is here as well, and he asks Jennifer to read the story of the little princess, which looks like a book he's made himself. When he opens the book, though, the pages are blank. At the next bus stop, the boy gets off and Jennifer follows. The bus departs with Jennifer's suitcase still aboard, leaving her alone on the darkened country road, and we see a title card for March 1930, The Little Princess. Rule of Rose is broken up into chapters, each taking place in a different month during the year 1930, and each centering on a different fairy tale. Jennifer opens the book she was handed, and the pages have now populated with a story. Once upon a time, there was a precious little girl. Her friend, the Princess of the Red Rose, was always at her side. Then one day, her mummy and daddy died suddenly. The princess, too, disappeared, leaving the girl all alone. And the poor little girl was sent away to a strange house. Notice the airship crash on the page about the girl's mom and dad dying, and the little girl being dragged away by a man on the last page. All important details. So Jennifer, whom the narrator refers to as the girl, is left alone at the bus stop in the middle of the night, thus beginning a mysterious, unthinkable, filthy tale. Great. Concerning the gameplay visuals, the character models are really crisp, lots of detail, and again, great animation. I love how Jennifer has her shoulders tensed up, hands in front of her, showing her fear and apprehension, which we'll see demonstrated in her character as the story continues. One thing I'm not a fan of in the presentation is the noise filter. Luckily, this effect can be turned down on the title menu. Unfortunately, there's no way to adjust it from the in-game menu. I liked having a little bit of static, so I set it at 2 for my playthrough. Also, I knew having it set too high wasn't going to look great with YouTube's compression. By examining the sign nearby, Jennifer finds that she's near the Rose Garden Orphanage. Following the path that the boy took, she hears the cry of a dog, which the narrator says sounds strangely familiar to her. Following the cries leads to a rickety shed. There's an old padlock on the door, but it's unlocked. In the shed, she finds a dog collar with the name Brown written on the inside. No sign of a dog, though. There's also a handmade boarding pass with a fish drawing and a carriage for passengers attached to the belly of the fish. At the bottom of the ticket, the words "Red Crayon Aristocrats" are written. Jennifer returns to the previous path and follows the boy further up the strange hill, which leads to an old building. The boy slips through the front gate. The narrator tells us this place seems familiar to the unlucky girl. Throughout the game, we'll get several of these same descriptors, that places and events seem familiar, or are scratching at the surface of some vague, buried memory Jennifer has. Approaching the front gates reveals a couple of children with bags over their heads, taking turns beating a bag with sticks. The little boy from earlier watches from the front entrance of the building before firmly shutting the door. Fearing heading through the main entrance and encountering these violent children, Jennifer makes her way around the side of the estate, which sets up a creepy moment. You can see the tops of several children's heads peeking over the wall, watching Jennifer approach. As she gets close, they drop down and laugh. At the back entrance is a doorway with a box next to it. Dropping the homemade boarding pass she found earlier into the box allows Jennifer entrance to the grounds. Making her way around the side of the building, Jennifer finds a child's drawing on the wall with the words, "Stray dog gives us sweets," written there. When she enters the front yard, Jennifer catches a glimpse of the bag that the children were beating on earlier being harshly dragged through the front doors. There's blood on the stones out here. She enters the orphanage and the doors are locked behind her. As Jennifer explores, she's taunted by children's laughter. The narrator says that she felt the chilling gaze of many eyes upon her, yet she was all alone. You can explore some parts of the house, which may be interesting to do. You might even stumble across some sights that will end up becoming eerily familiar later on, like this filth room with a doll tied to a post inside. That suitcase there looks awfully similar to the case Jennifer had on the bus, too. There's an old photo of some kids and a few adults in front of the orphanage. The two in the center look like the ones we saw playing in the park earlier. In other parts of the house, Jennifer will catch glimpses of the boy. Following him up to the attic, Jennifer finds a mountain of tables and cloths, decorated with candles, and the boy seated on one of two chairs, situated like thrones atop this makeshift altar. He asks Jennifer to read more of the story he gave her. Where earlier the story had ended with blank pages, now it continues. At her new home, the aristocrat club lived by the rule of Rose, but the girl found herself very much alone. Oh, but that's it. An announcement over a loudspeaker says the funeral will now begin, and all those who wish to attend should gather at this time. Outside, several children stand around a grave. The boy tells Jennifer the funeral for her dear friend is about to begin. As Jennifer heads back downstairs, she hears a dog barking. As a side note, I didn't grab the orphanage map from the table here, which kind of screwed me over later on, but we'll get to that. Following the dog's barking, Jennifer eventually winds up in the inner courtyard, where a shovel is stuck in the ground in front of the grave. She starts digging and uncovers a casket, which has the bag inside. Then we meet some members of the aristocrat club.
Just look at you. You're filthy.
Joining us on our flight. Attention all passengers. We will be taking off in a short while. Please take all large luggage to Section 8 of the freight storage compartment. Thank you.
So yeah, that was weird, that flight announcement. And where is this casket being taken? Next, a title card tells us it's April 1930, and our tale is The Unlucky Clover Field. Jennifer awakens tied to a post in the middle of a cold, lonely, stinky room. So we're told by the narrator. You can struggle, but there's no way out of the bindings. Finally, a voice comes over a loudspeaker to talk to Jennifer. You can answer yes or no to the questions, but it doesn't really matter what you choose. The voice explains what Jennifer needs to do.
Every month you need to find a gift and bring it to the Aristocrat Club. If you don't, I'll kill you. Is there anything about this that you don't understand? Yes? Oh well, it doesn't really matter what you say.
Told you.
You see, Jennifer, there are really only two kinds of people in the world. those who take orders and those who give them. And from now on, I'll be giving the orders. Not fair? Well, dear Jennifer, nothing's fair here. You will follow my orders or else. For I am the prince, and the prince rules!
The button the kid pressed drops a pair of scissors which cut Jennifer's bindings, freeing her. The narrator tells us that the girl has joined the Aristocrat Club. Congratulations! Jennifer can't take the scissors from the contraption yet, but aside from that, there's a charming little scarecrow made of broomsticks and old cloth. This statue of sorts even speaks to Jennifer, asking her to find his head. It's a bucket in another part of the room. Placing it on top introduces us to Bucket Knight, our trusty save point. He can also give vague hints about objectives. Replacing his head has him say this strange speech. I am the Bucket Knight, keeper of promises. Yet time can be so cruel. For I have aged and cannot remember the past. You know what I refer to, and I know that you know. However, you do not know at the moment, nor can you remember. Let us recall our memories together in order to remember our promise. Interesting. Accompanying Bucket Knight is the rubbish bin, which acts as item storage. The rubbish bin also talks. Lots of inanimate objects in Rule of Rose speak. It's at turns charming and unsettling. Jennifer has an inventory that holds 12 items. Rule of Rose is broken into chapters, but inventory items carry over, even when they're no longer useful. Luckily, you can just drop them anytime, anywhere, and they'll wind up back in the rubbish bin. All the rubbish bins are connected as well. Or maybe they're the same? Either way, you can recover any item from the rubbish bins after it's been dropped, so that actually makes inventory management incredibly forgiving. No need to remember where you've placed items, you just need to remember where the nearest Bucket Knight and rubbish bin room is. There's nothing left to do here, so we head out. Every time you enter an area, you'll see its name. This is the Sector 8 cargo bay. Hey.
Please take all large luggage to Section 8 of the freight storage compartment.
If we re-enter the starting room, hey. So we can explore this place. Butterfly up there, weird, and follow the signs to the Aristocrat Club in the first-class guest sector. Now, this door at the end of this long hallway looks like the way to go, but I happen to swing the camera around, which you can do by pressing L2 or R2, and the camera will swing from in front of Jennifer to behind her and vice versa. And I caught a glimpse of this window down the other hall. So I went to investigate, and this is where we discover we're on a goddamn airship. Now, I've already mentioned the airship earlier, but on my first playthrough with everything going on, those details just kind of washed over me. So when I saw this window and the narrator saying that Jennifer was above the clouds, it was kind of mind-blowing. I was just like, how the hell did we get on an airship? Why are we on an airship? We'll piece that together later. Anyway, heading back to the door to the Aristocrat Club, there's an offering box hanging here with a note pinned to the door above it. This month's gift is a beautiful butterfly. We saw a butterfly earlier. Heading back there, we see it again, but another little girl runs after it as it flies away. There's finally background music while exploring. We of course heard some during the opening cutscenes, but this seems like a good spot to talk about it in more detail. The music features lilting strings and pianos, fitting for its early 20th century setting, and it also gives the game a much different feel than other survival horrors. During exploration, the strings sound sorrowful. During combat, they're piercing and anxiety-inducing. That vocal theme that plays in the beginning of the game and at the end is a real earworm as well.
So please don't set me free. I'm as heavy as can be. I will do you harm. I will break my arm. I'm a victim of your charm.
A lot of the time while exploring, there is no music, leaving just the ambiance of the area. In the turbine room, Jennifer finds a dog who's been hogtied from the ceiling. Unfortunately, there's no way to rescue the poor guy just yet. Hold on, buddy, we'll be back. Further on, there's a woman cleaning the floors. This is Martha, the queen of cleaning.
Filthy wretch.
Jeez. Following the cries of a little girl leads Jennifer to Olivia, the tearful princess, who's crying over a dead butterfly. As Jennifer reaches for the butterfly, Olivia stabs it with a dessert fork.
You deserve to be gobbled up.
Jeez. Jennifer takes the dessert fork and we have our first weapon. She takes the dead butterfly too. There's also a copper leaf on a chair that'll be useful later. Rule of Rose doesn't have tank controls, which some may find as a relief, but there are still fixed camera angles, so get ready for frustration as the direction changes when the camera cuts. Beyond that, if you try to use the control stick, there's this weird quality to it where Jennifer will only run if you're holding it in specifically the up, down, left, or right directions. If you tilt it diagonally, which you'll be want to do since the game world is 3D, Jennifer will stop running and walk. Usually in these kinds of games, there would be a run button, but Rule of Rose doesn't have one. Using the control stick is extremely frustrating, so use the D-pad for movement. For some reason, you can run diagonally with the D-pad, and just run everywhere. There's no need to walk. Beyond the wonky mechanical feel of playing the game though, one of the major things that struck me on my first playthrough was the wonky way it felt to inhabit Rule of Rose's game world. And this time I'm not using wonky in a negative way. It just feels weird exploring this game. I think this feeling was brought about for me by not having the story spoiled beforehand, so I wasn't able to fully grasp what was going on at any given moment. I just kept thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Is the game going to give me some sort of hint or moment of exposition? There are hints, very subtle hints throughout the first half of the game, but for that other one, exposition, no, it never does. There is no expository dialogue in Rule of Rose. No moment where another character takes you aside and explains what's going on. No internal monologue from Jennifer herself, which is honestly great. Even with the narrator mechanic, everything is very matter-of-fact, telling you things you already know, like Jennifer is alone, Jennifer is scared, or just giving you a sense of the environment that you wouldn't be able to get as a person sitting in front of a TV or monitor with a controller in hand. The room is cold, the room is smelly, and so on. I spoke earlier about that moment when you find out you're on an airship. It's jarring. And for most of the game, I'd say like 80% of my playtime, I never felt like there was a real firm foundation to stand on. There's no sense of reality to anything, which, it turns out, is kind of the point. Not until the last couple of chapters did I start to really piece together the structure of Rule of Rose's narrative. It's very dreamlike, but not in the way that something like Silent Hill is dreamlike, where there's some sort of reality and mundanity underpinning the setting that's then twisted by external or internal forces. In Rule of Rose, there's no mundanity or sense of normalcy to hold on to. The game thrusts you into its narrative clutches and proceeds to toss you around, never setting you down, never allowing you to feel secure. Even in the save rooms with Bucket Knight and the rubbish bin, there's a tiny sense of security there, but still, why are these inanimate objects speaking? And why is everything related to Jennifer associated with filth and trash? It's so strange and uninviting. Jennifer is alienated from her peers, alienated from her surroundings. It leaves the player feeling uneasy all the time, and it's just one layer to the game's greater cruelty. Anyway, dead butterfly in hand, Jennifer heads back to the Aristocrat Club, but on her way encounters the first enemy, this little imp child. Enemies, of which there aren't a huge variety, have kind of plain designs for the most part. The weakest and most common are these imp children who are just kind of they're not that scary. And you don't have to fight this one, you can just run away. In fact, you don't actually have to fight anything until near the end of the third chapter, when you're locked in a room with 3 enemies. But I didn't know that yet, so it's a good time to talk about Rule of Rose's worst aspect. Its combat. Hold R1 to ready your weapon, and X to attack. Simple enough. Jennifer has a 3-hit combo with most weapons, the last of which will normally knock a foe down. If an enemy grabs you, you can wiggle the left stick or mash the D-pad to break free. Jennifer has this sort of stomp move she sometimes does when enemies are on the ground, but I never saw it actually do anything, so you have to wait for them to get up. Even the weakest enemies will get up at least once with most weapons. On top of that, the hitboxes can be really weird. And since readying the weapon locks Jennifer in place, if an enemy is slightly off-center or just even a little bit off to the side or out of range, your attacks aren't likely to hit. This moment here is also the only time you'll ever face just one enemy, outside of boss battles. Whenever the game forces you to fight, it will be against multiple foes, and I've already talked about Jennifer's weird movement controls, so you can imagine how those fights go. Luckily, you can run past most enemies, but as I said, the game will force you to fight from time to time, and this gets especially egregious in the second half of the game. You get better weapons than a dessert fork, at least. a kitchen knife, a meat cleaver, a steel pipe that looks ridiculous when Jennifer holds it, a shovel, an axe. Even though this famous promotional shot shows Jennifer holding a revolver, you never get a firearm or any other ranged weapons. Well, you do eventually get that revolver, but it doesn't work the way you'd think. Better weapons don't alleviate the core issues with combat, though. And one of the bosses you'll face about halfway through is possibly the most frustrating fight I've ever done in any survival horror game. Maybe in any game ever. It is so badly designed. I can't wait to talk about it. Anyway, as for other regular enemies, there are some with heads of different animals like rabbits, mice, goats, pigs. This anthropomorphic style reminded me of illustrations in old children's fairy tale books, which is pretty much exactly what the design team was going for. Some of them look really dumb though, like these bird enemies. God, doesn't make for the most threatening cast of baddies. They come in large numbers from time to time, but with how easy it is to avoid them, they don't hold any lasting impression beyond how goofy they look. Putting the dead butterfly in the offering box at the club door doesn't impress the aristocrats, so Jennifer needs to find a live one. Some kids drop a one-leaf clover key on the ground, and back where we found the dead butterfly, there were doors marked with clovers with different numbers of leaves, all the way up to 4. As we head back through the maintenance area, Jennifer is confronted by a man holding a storybook, The Clover Field, which he hands over to her. Once upon a time, there was an unlucky girl. All she wanted was to be happy, so she went to a clover field. She found a one-leaf clover, but she dropped it on the road. She found a 2-leaf clover, but it slipped into the shadows. She found a 3-leaf clover, but a witch hid it away. She wanted to find a 4-leaf clover, but she was too unlucky. This story also gives some hints as to how we're going to collect the other cloverleaf keys throughout this chapter. Back downstairs, Jennifer spots a kid coming out of one of the rooms. Inside is the switch the boy from the beginning had pressed to lower the scissors and cut her bindings. So now Jennifer could do that and grab the rusty scissors. In the turbine area, Jennifer uses the scissors to rescue the dog that's been tied up here. And we're introduced to Brown. Oh my god, that face. What a good boy. Brown won't come with Jennifer until she puts the collar on him. Concerning the dog, lots of players talk about both Rule of Rose and Haunting Ground because they're both PS2 survival horror games that star an orphaned blonde-haired girl who has a dog companion. Some people even confuse the two games. Can you believe that? There are some major differences though. Huey from Haunting Ground is a German Shepherd. Brown is a Labrador Retriever. Duh. Joking aside, the mechanical functions of these companions are slightly different between the two games. In Rule of Rose, you can give Brown a couple of basic commands. Circle will order him to come to Jennifer. Square will have him stay. Unlike Huey, where such commands were essential to solving puzzles and progressing in certain areas, Brown's commands are not quite as well realized. There are no relationship mechanics either. In Haunting Ground, Fiona and Huey would grow closer depending on how you treated him. You needed to praise him when he listened to commands, and scold him when he ignored them. Doing so would eventually have him become more obedient. There was a light training element to his AI. His personality could develop in different ways depending on your actions, creating a real bond between the two, or an antagonistic relationship. Here, Brown's just Brown, which, as we'll learn, fits the story, but takes away some gameplay complexity. You can still pet and hug Brown by pressing the circle button while standing directly in front of him, so Rule of Rose gets points for that. Brown can do some things in combat, like bark to frighten smaller enemies, or bite bosses to hold them in place for a bit. He can be ordered to attack as long as you don't have anything equipped for him to find in the item menu, because the find and attack button is the same. Triangle. Brown just doesn't feel quite as effective in battle as Huey did though. Brown has his own life bar and can be knocked out, but he can also be healed and revived using animal bones or dog food. Brown's main function in Rule of Rose is finding items. There's a biscuit tin on the shelf in this room, and when Jennifer picks it up, we're given a small tutorial. Go to the menu and use the find function on the item. This will equip it in the find slot, which essentially has Brown sniff it to get its scent. By pressing triangle, he will track down more biscuits. You can use this to find other healing items throughout the game, like shortbread, candy, lollipops, and so on. But the more important function is finding key items. Most of the exploration in Rule of Rose is centered around this mechanic. In almost all scenarios, you'll find or be given a sub-item related to a main item that you need to find to progress. Using the find command, Brown will lead Jennifer straight to that item. This is surprisingly simple and again makes sense thematically, but it also presents another problem with Rule of Rose's gameplay. As long as you have Brown with you, there's no need to really explore any of the locations in the game. And aside from 2 major chapters going forward, you are always with Brown. So just follow him, find what you need, and return it to the aristocrats to complete the chapter. That's the basic loop. There are no real puzzles in Rule of Rose. I mean, there's one in a bit that involves finding some numbers to open combination lockboxes, but you still use the basic function of follow Brown's nose to find the clues to get the combinations. And outside of our current objective in this chapter, which is related to the cloverleaf keys, there aren't even any locked doors that you need to find other keys for. This makes Rule of Rose's gameplay repetitive. But more egregiously, it also diminishes the game's horror. Effective survival horror gameplay almost exclusively relies on puzzles and locked doors because it forces you to explore an environment that is unsettling. Take routes that you otherwise wouldn't want to. Press further into creepy locations, examining the details of the environment, desperately searching for a way to progress. Having Brown lead you directly to the item without fail and without any real distractions or detours for the most part ruins that sense of dread. There are ways they could have fixed this. They could have created more interesting puzzle-solving moments, like spots where you need to separate from Brown, forcing Jennifer to go find something on her own. This kind of design was used to great effect in Haunting Ground. But Rule of Rose never takes these opportunities. You just go straight to the item, every time. There's not even a risk of getting lost. And because you're never lost in these locations, you never really feel threatened by them. But this also brings up a complaint I have with the environmental design in Rule of Rose. It's just not all that interesting. Yes, the locations do have a lot of details and intricacies. There's nothing wrong with that. But the color palette, general design, and level layout can be a bit bland. We're only just starting the game, but outside of one unique location about halfway through, what you've seen already is all you're gonna get. We're gonna spend most of our time on this airship. We'll return to the orphanage later, but we've already been there. And yeah, there's nothing that wowed me visually or caused me to go, hey, look at that, or oh, that was good level design. The places function and make sense layout-wise, but they're very simple and straightforward. Makes it easy to not get too lost, but doesn't make for engaging exploration. Circling back around, though, that doesn't matter because you really don't need to explore. Love this dog, but the way they've designed the gameplay loop around him kind of ruins the whole experience of playing the game. Now again, the story is what we're here for, but I couldn't not mention how badly I feel like the developers fumbled the horror gameplay design. Anyway, leaving this area, we meet Martha, the cleaning queen again, and you know what horror Rule of Rose lacks in its gameplay? It sure makes up for in its story sequences. God damn. So anyway, we use Brown to find the 2-leaf clover key. We then use Martha's hat, which will lead to her dirty rag that she used for cleaning. This will then lead to a section of one of the walls that Brown can tear away, revealing that Martha was the witch in the story who hid the 3-leaf clover key. We won't be finding the 4-leaf key anytime soon. Beyond the 3-leaf door, we find the girl we saw chasing the butterfly earlier. She's got a whole collection of them. She doesn't want to give them up though. As Jennifer leaves, the girl also exits the room. Okay. Well, now Jennifer can go back in, take the butterfly case, and use it to have Brown find a butterfly. This leads Jennifer to a blue butterfly. As she follows, they grow in number. This is actually a pretty atmospheric scene, especially combined with the background music. This eventually leads to a beautiful blue butterfly, and it's intercut with the kids beating on Martha's dead and contorted corpse, which makes for quite a contrast. They mention a stray dog that gives sweets, comes at night, and kidnaps kids. They're not talking about Brown. Anyway, these imp children with brooms come out, and you don't have to fight them. You can just grab the butterfly on the ground and run away. The hallways are filled with enemies now, but we can run past all of them. All we need to do is get back to the Aristocrat Club and leave the butterfly as an offering. The other girl has already left hers. Placing the blue butterfly in the offering box will formally introduce us to the members of the Aristocrat Club.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Aristocrat Club. Thank you all for gathering here today. a disgrace. Nothing worse than nothing. Your gift is worth nothing. Amanda. There. Amanda. 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 Amanda.
Welcome to the Aristocrat Club. This cutscene is amazing. The voice acting is stellar. I just wish more of the game was actually voiced. It's only really in these cutscenes and in very few moments throughout actual gameplay. And those facial animations, I've already talked about them, but the disgust on Jennifer's face as the rat is pushed against her, and the way Amanda looks scared by what she's pressured into doing by the other girls, but then seems to start enjoying it, it's deliciously evil. Jennifer awakens in the room, but all the girls have gone, and only the boy from earlier is there, asking her if she remembers what a bad girl she was. Only when she fully remembers will the game be over. Thus begins May 1930, Sir Peter. And this is also where I will throw out a major spoilers warning. I've got all my critiques out of the way, for the most part, so from here on out, we're going to be digging into the game's story. So if you've seen enough and want to try to play Rule of Rose, go ahead. You should come back after you finish it though, that would be cool. Anyway, without further ado, it's time to really dive in. Jennifer wakes up back in the filth room with Brown. On the floor is a letter from Amanda, the girl who poked her in the face with a rat on a stick. She says she's sorry and to meet her where you can see the sky. In another part of the airship, we catch a glimpse of her riding a lift. Following her leads to a ladder that puts Jennifer on the actual top of the airship, while it's supposedly flying hundreds of feet above the ground. This just reinforces those off-balance feelings I was talking about earlier. It's so bizarre. Amanda's crying, saying she's sorry, and crawls toward Jennifer, which is horrifying.
Tonight. I had no choice. They would have hurt us both, wouldn't they? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's my turn. Don't think you have to hold back. Do it like this. And this. And this. And this. Oh, and this. And like this. And this. We're still friends, aren't we? I know we're still friends, Jennifer. Just
It's hard to really put into words the disturbing nature of this scene. So many things going on here. Physical, emotional, sexually suggestive. It's a microcosm of all the game's themes. Add voyeurism to that as well. Back on the bottom level, Jennifer finds Amanda again in a sewing room. She says she's making a gift for Jennifer, and also not to touch her diary in the glass case nearby. Afterwards, Jennifer finds a note that says she and Amanda should report to the gift box. The narrator refers to Amanda as the small-hearted princess. All the aristocrats have nicknames like this. Amanda is also creepy because of the way the voice actor just kind of breathes heavy and snorts during out-of-cutscene dialogue. I know I said earlier that I wished more lines were voiced, but moments like this make up for it. At the offering box, the note reads that one-horned Peter has run away and needs to be caught. In the library nearby, Jennifer finds Amanda looking for Peter and another girl, the one with glasses who's a higher-ranking member of the aristocrats. This is the wise-looking princess, whose real name is Meg. She just says exactly what the note on the door said, to find Sir Peter. It becomes clear that Jennifer and Amanda are at the bottom of this hierarchy, new recruits to the aristocrats club. But this is something I want to comment on. These other aristocrats, the higher-ranking ones, are seen as frightening and threatening forces in cutscenes, orchestrating despicable tortures and hazing for Jennifer and Amanda, as we'll come to see. But the fact that you can just find them hanging around as you're exploring and even talk to them creates a disconnect between the story and gameplay. Sometimes they say mean things, but most of the time they're just talking about whatever your main objective is for that chapter. And again, as with the exploration mechanics, I feel like the designers could have done more to add some terror to their presence. Maybe you need to avoid the girls because they'll try to attack Jennifer, or they could capture her and then you'd have to use Brown to try to escape. Having that happen constantly would get a bit annoying, but I don't know, just don't have them hanging around so visibly then. Have them in the shadows watching Jennifer as you move through different areas, or mocking her without being able to actually see them. They've already been presented as voyeuristic at times, and the opening of the game does a great job at making their presence known, with the heads peeking over the walls and the laughter as you're exploring the orphanage. They could have kept that up. Things like that at least sell the illusion of a threat and work to make the player feel uneasy. It's just another element that makes me feel like the game isn't reaching its horror potential. Now, there are story reasons that kind of explain why the girls are approachable like this, which we'll examine later, but I still don't think it's enough of a reason to sacrifice the tension and gameplay experience in your horror game. Out in the hallway, there's a rabbit to follow, which leads to the filth room. And Christ, this was the only scary thing that happened to me during exploration. This freaking guy just standing behind this door. What the hell are you doing? I wish the game would have done more of this weird stuff. He walks out and says that he's written a new story for someone named Joshua, then walks away. I told you in the beginning to remember the name Joshua. Keep remembering it. Inside the room, there's a mound of rabbit droppings on the floor and a bag of them you can pick up. Jennifer will also find the story of Sir Peter. Sir Peter went out for a stroll. Sir Peter, put in a cage, had to hold it in. Sir Peter, needs to go right now, doesn't want to sin. Sir Peter, bagged and whisked away before he found a toilet. Goodbye, Peter, goodbye. What? Anyway, the rabbit is back, so have Brown sniff the bag of turds and track the rabbit all around the airship. There are enemies now, but as always, you can run past all of them. There's one moment where you'll be locked inside a room and forced to fight. You'll always see one of the younger kids with a bag over their head locking you in a room in these moments. Take care of the enemies and you can find a newspaper clipping on the table here that tells of a multiple homicide at an orphanage in Cardington. The paper is dated December 1930. It's May right now. It goes on to say that all the children were killed. One adult died as well, a man named Gregory Wilson. Wilson apparently shot himself with a pistol, and the police believe he was the one who committed the murders. Well, whatever. No, but this is an important clue to the larger narrative, but the game doesn't comment on it, and you can completely miss this detail. There are several other writings, diary entries, and other notes that fill out the backstory scattered throughout the game that can be completely missed by not investigating your environment. And in fact, I missed most of them on my first playthrough. A lot of these things don't stand out. They aren't even highlighted like other notes and items in the game. It's almost as if the developers wanted you to miss them. Anyway, Jennifer and Brown end up following the rabbit all the way to the Sector 7 cargo bay. There are some imp children beating on a bag with brooms. They soon leave, and as Jennifer approaches the bag, we meet a new friend.
Yeah. Why, you little rat, Jennifer? Did you make a mess again? This is unforgivable, you dirty, dirty girl.
This is our first boss fight, and here's some thrilling gameplay. So you've just got to try to stay behind him. Brown can help out here a bit. It's not too bad if you can manage to maneuver out of the narrow space where the fight starts. The noises this boss makes are ridiculous. I found out only while I was writing this script that many people consider this boss fight a roadblock of sorts. I don't know if I just got lucky on my playthroughs, but I had no issues. I beat him on my first attempt. I had to use a few healing items, but otherwise didn't have too much trouble, especially after I got out into the open. Now the second boss fight, yeah, we'll talk about that. Anyway, when he finally goes down, the imp kids come around and clean up the mess. We'll piece together who this guy was later. Jennifer finds a warm bag on the ground where the boss fell. Heading back to the Aristocrats Club, Amanda kneels in the hallway and asks Jennifer to hand over Sir Peter. I don't trust her, but it's the only thing to do. Turns out, when Jennifer attempts to give her the warm bag, Sir Peter, the rabbit, jumps out alive and well. After entering the Aristocrats Club, instead of finding herself in the room with the makeshift altar, instead everyone is out in the middle of a forest at night.
Lower classes like you and me can't go up really close. We have to pray from a distance.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Aristocrat Club. I wish to thank you for gathering here today.
Jennifer!
May I have your attention? This is a message from the Princess of the Rose. The message reads, Jennifer, your efforts this month deserve special recognition. You managed to find Peter and will be amply rewarded. Thus concludes the message from the princess.
Splendid work, Jennifer. You are no longer a wretched peon. Amanda, on the other hand, has been demoted. Amanda. It's time, Jennifer. 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 Jennifer.
Jennifer awakens back in the room with only the boy again. There are 3 stories laid out on the makeshift altar, and now you have a choice of how you'd like to proceed. Each story is missing its final page, which contain clues to unlock Jennifer's memories. You need to complete all 3 stories to find those last pages. These chapters are relatively short, and it doesn't matter which order we do them in. So let's go left to right. The first story is The Bird of Happiness. Once a girl found a big box. The bird of happiness was inside. The bird would take her to Foreverland, or so she hoped. Each box was smaller than the last. In a cramped, dark space, she finally found her little bird. But it was far too little, and far too late. The bird was long dead. It had met a bloody fate. The end. However, there's a page that's been ripped out. So now it's July 1930, though previously when we were given the opportunity to save in the Aristocrats room, the save game said it was October. Just pointing that out. When Jennifer closes the book, she's in a room with the cold princess, Eleanor. She informs Jennifer that she needs to find a red bird, then leaves. Jennifer runs into Meg and Diana, who's called the strong-willed princess. As they run away, they drop a crimson bird feather. Using this, Brown will lead Jennifer to a trail of bird feathers. There's also this moment if you enter the bathroom near the beginning of the feather trail. Inspecting the mirror, the narrator says it must be because of the crack in the mirror, but you see the illusion of a strange man in the reflection. And I don't know, I've enhanced this image and brightened it, and I can't see shit in this mirror, so I don't really know what this is getting at. Anyone who has any thoughts on this, leave a comment. Following the trail of feathers leads to an upstairs bathroom, where there's a drawing on the wall with a smear of blood. Just then, Diana and Meg enter, so Jennifer hides in the other stall with Brown. The two girls talk about not liking her, and never being able to get along with her. After they leave, Jennifer exits the bathroom, but runs right into them. They admonish her for eavesdropping, but that's about it. Then they say the bird of happiness is in a room nearby, and if they don't find it quickly, it will die, which will make Eleanor upset. In a nearby room, Jennifer finds a large box, like the one mentioned in the story, along with a land sketch. The sketch says the land of the bird population is 834, so input that number into the box. This is the only section of the game that can be considered to have a real puzzle, but it's incredibly simple. Inside the box is another sketch, this time torn into multiple pieces. You need to use Brown to find the other pieces and combine them. They'll include a 3-digit number, so return to this room, find an even smaller box, input the new number, and you'll get another clue to follow. Repeat until the end. That's it. I like the background music in this segment though. There's a weird moment where one of the pieces is on this person who's been beaten and tied up. At first I thought this was Amanda, maybe further punished for the events of the last chapter, but I'm not sure. I don't know who this is. Anyway, at the end of it all, Jennifer will find a small bag inside the last box, and inside that is a red bird. Eleanor enters, and Jennifer tries to tell her she wasn't the one who killed the bird, but all she does is toss the thing inside her cage and leave. We then see her walking through the orphanage from the beginning of the game, not the airship. She drops the dead bird in the offering box. Yeah, that was my reaction. After the door closes, Jennifer wakes up back in the starting room. The final page of the story is on the couch nearby. When placed at the end of the storybook, the final page reads, "The moral, everlasting happiness is a joke." Jennifer then proceeds to write the word everlasting on the chalkboard beneath the bucket knight. She returns to the aristocrat's room, and this time we go for the middle story, the Goat Sisters. Little sister wrote a letter, ba ba. Big sister munched it up, ba ba. Little sister studied her notes, ba ba. Big sister tore them to shreds, ba ba. Little sister wanted to read big sister the letter, so she fetched it from her sister's stomach. But with big sister dead in a pool of amber blood, who is there to read the letter to, ba ba? So here we are in September. Jennifer closes the storybook to find Meg in the room with her. As with Eleanor, the only clue she gives is to find something important. She's also left behind a pencil, which we can use to track the next item, the aristocrat pledge. Brown then leads Jennifer to Stray Dog's notes, which are details about the monster written by the Princess of the Rose. According to the notes, the stray dog is big, strong, scarred, loyal, talkative, cleanly, and he kidnaps children who don't do their chores. We saw a drawing of the stray dog on the side of the orphanage in the beginning of the game. After that, Brown leads Jennifer to a freezer with a snowman inside, which he ruthlessly knocks over. Cold-blooded. Inside is another note, a love letter from Meg to Diana. Next, Jennifer runs into Diana and Eleanor. Though we don't catch the beginning of the conversation, it seems that Diana is talking about Meg and how she doesn't like how she follows her around all the time. Eleanor says she saw Meg writing a love letter, which Diana says she's already received and ripped in half. So if it isn't already apparent, these short tales that we're working our way through align with each of the main Aristocrats Club members. Diana orders Jennifer to find the other half of the love letter, so let Brown sniff it and follow along. This eventually leads to a mini-boss fight with two goat enemies, one wielding a large pair of scissors and the other carrying a pitchfork. They do a lot of damage, but focusing on one of them and running around a lot is key. Inside the grandfather clock in this room, Jennifer finds a dead goat and the other half of the love letter.
There you are.
There you are. Why do you have it? How could she? How could she do that to me? What did I ever do to her? I can't get along with girls like her.
It's into the onion bag for her.
So Jennifer gets put in the onion bag, where the kids take turns dropping insects inside with her. When Jennifer awakens, she's back in the starting room and picks up the final page of the Goat Sisters' story. Even true love is quickly shredded by conflict. Jennifer writes the words, "true love," on the chalkboard. The last story in the altar room is The Mermaid Princess. And oh boy, here we go. A long, long time ago, the Mermaid Princess fell in love with a human prince. But for years, her love went unrequited. Before long, she was old and decrepit, all alone even on the day of her death. The poor, poor princess of the Sea Kingdom. Who'd ever want to become an ugly woman like her? It's August 1930, so these events technically take place before the Goat Sisters chapter. Jennifer finds herself in a room with a fish tank. Diana is here, and she says the fish is gone, and Mr. Hoffman will be furious. We've seen Hoffman before, but during a first playthrough you may not know it yet. So Jennifer needs to find Hoffman's fish. Outside in the hallway, she finds a girl crying in front of the aristocrat's door, because this month's gift is an unmarried mermaid. And as the girl says, there's no such thing. On the stairs, Jennifer listens in on a conversation between Meg and Eleanor where they say they had to do something even though it made Diana upset. When Jennifer approaches them, they say that Diana may find the mermaid before she does. After they leave, Jennifer finds a fish scale on the ground. Thus begins this chapter's scavenger hunt. While following Brown, Jennifer catches a glimpse of a slightly older girl who you may or may not have seen before depending on how thoroughly you've explored, being led away by an old man. This is Clara. Brown leads us down to a strange part of the airship called the lower vertical tail. It sounds like we're underwater in this area, and Jennifer finds a fish head along with a meat cleaver weapon. The fish head leads to the wire controller area of the ship, and what the? Jennifer runs into Diana, who says the fish must be this way, meaning in the central stairway section of the airship. Brown then leads us to the legs of a doll. The top half has been torn off. The doll legs lead Jennifer to a door with Mermaid Room written on it. Inside, we see the old man from earlier sitting on a bed, stroking someone who's lying in it. Someone is in the bed, and a rope extends to the ceiling. Welcome to the mermaid fight, quite possibly one of the worst boss fights ever designed. Period. The mermaid has 3 attacks, one where she reaches out to smack Jennifer, another where she thrashes around, and the last is her projectile vomit, which covers a large area of the floor around her and does continuous damage if Jennifer is caught in it. As with most bosses and enemies, getting behind her is the best strategy, but this is made especially difficult because she rises up to the ceiling and then drops down in different parts of the room. If you're using headphones, you can kind of listen to tell which side of the room she's going to drop down in, but the sound design isn't good enough to pinpoint her exact location. location. And there are no visual cues like a shadow or anything to show you where she's going to drop. At first I thought it had to do with Jennifer's location, like she tracked her, but that isn't always the case. So it's almost impossible to tell where she's going to appear. Also, she can drop down in the corners of the room, making it difficult to attack her because she can easily swipe at Jennifer from the front, or she can vomit all over the floor so you can't even get near her, and you'll be forced to wait until she moves. The other thing about this boss is you can really only get in one and very rarely two hits before she just goes invincible and rises up to the ceiling. It feels terrible. Sometimes it looks like you've definitely hit her, but the game just says, nope, that one didn't count. The mermaid also has a lot of health. The steel pipe is not the strongest weapon we have at this point, but it's the one with the most reach, so it was easier to stay out of her range. Brown is also useless in this fight. He can't reach her since she's hanging from the ceiling. He mainly just gets caught in the vomit and passes out. I died a couple times, and was forced to redo the entire chapter because I'd only saved at the very beginning. I eventually ended up getting to the mermaid door and then running all the way back to a save room so I wouldn't have to do the entire scavenger hunt again at least. But then this was the attempt where I beat her, so fuck me, right? And oh my god, the noises she makes, it just piles on to the aggravation. Anyway, this boss takes forever to kill. I hate combat that's designed around the enemy dictating the flow of battle with nothing for the player to do but sit around and wait. It's not challenging in any mechanical way, it's just testing the player's patience, which is terrible design. Combine that with all the other annoying shit this boss does, and it was just a depressingly low point in the game. It's one of those things where when you win, you don't even feel any satisfaction. Case in point, this is what I wrote in my notes when the fight was over. Fucking finally! What an annoying fucking fight. Fuck that. It was a very dungeon, no-chill moment.
What in blazes? Just who did this? Who made this mess? Was it you? Go on, tell me. Answer me, Diana. No new mummy or daddy would ever want you if you don't like that.
Yes, the way this old man, who is Mr. Hoffman, the headmaster of the orphanage, is touching Diana, and the way he was leading the other girl away and stroking her in the bed before is extremely, to put it insultingly lightly, suggestive. It hints at other abuses beyond psychological and physical that occurred at this orphanage. And if we go back to the intro cutscene when we see Diana for the first time, she curtsies, pulling her dress up to an uncomfortable height, revealing a bandage on her upper thigh, an area of the body that often incurs injuries resulting from, well, I'll let you fill in the blank because YouTube won't let me. Additionally, and speaking specifically of the mermaid boss fight, there's a girl named Clara, dubbed the Frightened Princess, who can be found near the beginning of the game in the sickbay with Mr. Hoffman. The only words she says to Jennifer are, "How dirty." At first, you might think she's referring to Jennifer, since that's how all the other kids talk to her. But after learning of her fate here and her relationship to Mr. Hoffman, she could be speaking of herself. I also think the rope and the whole hanging from the ceiling mechanic implies, well, again, I think you can finish that thought. Jennifer wakes up in the starting room and finds the last page of the storybook inside the mermaid doll. "I am yours, even in death." And Jennifer writes the phrase, "I am yours," on the chalkboard. Back in the aristocrats' room, all the books are gone, and the only thing to do is leave. But as she does, we're taken back to June, the missing month, since we jumped from May in the Sir Peter chapter to July through October in our journey through the short storybooks. Strangely, there is no year written on this title card for the Gingerbread House, though, which I believe is intentional and meant to obscure when these events actually took place. The man who took Jennifer leaves her in the middle of a clearing surrounded by rose bushes. This is the same man we've been seeing around the airship. Jennifer awakens to find herself alone. Even Brown is missing, possibly because this event took place before she met Brown. Following the only path forward leads to the Gingerbread House, which is really just an old house in the woods. There's a lot to find here if you explore thoroughly, and a lot of details that will only start to come together toward the end of the game. The mailbox has the name Gregory Wilson on it. Entering the house and checking the door to the living room shows what appears to be a flashback. The man is sitting on a couch, a table full of alcohol before him, and he holds his head in his hands. By exiting through a window and entering through another, you can find a toy room. A wind-up airship rolls across the floor and topples over. A scene that Jennifer can't take her eyes off of. A newspaper in here has an article about several missing children incidents. A flashback in the study shows the man sitting at his desk, laughing to himself. There's a calendar on the wall in the bathroom for June 1929. Some of the dates have strange symbols written next to them. All the while, you can hear the man reciting a story we haven't found in any storybook, but the details of which we've heard before. It's about a stray dog who collects peas. The voice leads to the basement.
Small peas, every which kind of pea. Come Monday, he finds a pea. Come Tuesday, he bags the pea. Come Wednesday, he shows the pea to his son. Come Thursday, the pea kicks and screams. Come Friday, he grinds up the pea.
Entering the only room down here, Jennifer is confronted with the man sitting in front of an empty bed, a revolver held to the side of his head. The man turns around and says, "Welcome home." He then informs Jennifer it's bedtime and says, "Good night, Joshua," closing and locking the door behind him. Remember when I said, remember the name Joshua? Well, keep on remembering it. Jennifer is stuck in this room. Looking around reveals letters from a girl named Wendy to a Jay, whom she calls her prince. She says that she'll rescue him, and also not to worry about the man, who seems crazy. She knows where he hides that awful thing of his, so the two of them will run away together. On the wall is another newspaper clipping about an airship that has gone off course. The article is dated June 1929. Pulling the sheets aside reveals a boy's set of clothing laid out underneath. Jennifer can bang on this dresser until a teddy bear with a green string around its neck falls to the floor. Then a voice comes through the window. It's the young girl from the first cutscene in the game. She says, "I came just like I promised." Then she says she'll come and let Jennifer out. A few moments later, the door is unlocked. When Jennifer goes back upstairs, she runs into the girl in the hallway. The girl says they should leave, but before they go, they should find that dangerous thing and take it with them, which can be found in a small bag in the study. The two run away from the house while the man is busy out in the backyard and reunite in the clearing among the rose bushes. The girl then asks to trade the bear for her brooch. The girl decides to give the teddy bear the name Joshua. She then tells Jennifer they should renew their pact. Everlasting true love, I am yours. The same words that Jennifer wrote on the chalkboard. Jennifer is back on the airship, her hands still being held, but when she wakes up, she sees the young boy from earlier running away, telling her that she should go back to Amanda, where she belongs. We return to October 1930, the Rag Princess sews. This month's gift is Joshua the teddy bear, who is missing. The note on the Aristocrats Club door reads that the person who finds him will be given a red crayon, supposedly promoting them to the higher level of the aristocrats. Jennifer immediately reunites with Brown, and upon heading downstairs is confronted by the man once again, leaving behind a story he wrote for Joshua. Once upon a time, there was a girl who sewed rags, day in, day out. The stench of the rags seeped into her clothes. Her stepsisters wore beautiful dresses and went to the ball. The girl stayed at home, and her jealousy festered. One day, a fairy godmother came, cast a spell upon the girl, and said, "Sew yourself an ash-gray dress, then you can go to the ball like your stepsisters." The girl patched together the sooty rags, and that's how she became the Rag Princess. A very stinky princess indeed. She stunk up the whole town, in fact. No girl who stunk so would be allowed into the ball. I'll make that girl wear this awful dress myself. And thus, the Rag Princess and the girl in the rag dress became playpals. Inside the working class luggage area, we find Amanda sewing, which we saw her doing earlier in the game as well. When Jennifer approaches, she gets pissy. But as she leaves, Amanda says Wendy took Joshua. We saw the name Wendy in the letters from the Gingerbread House. Amanda says Wendy is sick in bed, so that's our clue to head to the sick room. Jennifer finds her lying on the floor, referred to as the Lonely Princess. The other girls have accused her of taking Joshua. She says she's sorry that she's lost him after promising to take care of him. After leaving Wendy, Jennifer returns to Amanda, but instead finds Diana sitting at the sewing machine. She tells Jennifer Amanda has run off somewhere and orders her to find the teddy bear. In the sewing kit next to the machine is a bear's tail, so you know what to do. Follow Brown. As we move through the airship, though, we'll come upon a rather disturbing scene. That was Amanda, dragging Jennifer's body across the floor. What? In this room, Jennifer finds a glass case key, which will open the case that holds Amanda's diary, the one she got mad at Jennifer for getting near in the beginning of the game. Amanda's diary details her miserable life at the orphanage. She was bullied by the aristocrats before Jennifer arrived. She hopes that with a new girl around, she won't take the brunt of the other children's cruelty. There's a curious line that reads, "I tattled on Mr. Hoffman as they told me to do, but I failed again." Tattled on Mr. Hoffman? For what? And to whom? The months wear on, and it seems Amanda continues to lose out to Jennifer, culminating in July, August, and September entries where she just writes, "I hate her," over and over, and says, "Oh my, I've got to sew the rags." By October, she's finished sewing whatever it is she was working on. She also calls out several of the other kids who aren't main members of the aristocrats, but who are all part of the club. She gleefully imagines ways for all the other children to meet their ends, and especially for Jennifer, she writes that she'll get her to do Amanda's dirty work. On the last page, she writes that she's worried and doesn't know what's going to happen. The diary ends with some drawings of Amanda growing wings and flying away, before crashing to the ground and devolving into scribbles. Again, Jennifer can use the bear tail, which will lead her to the lift in Sector 6, the one that took us to the top of the airship earlier. We see Amanda take the lift up, with Jennifer's body still in tow, but when Jennifer tries to press the button, the power goes out. Digging the airship map out of the rubbish bin will be helpful here. Naturally, we need to find the generator room. Jennifer finds a boy removing the lever from one of the machines and running off with it. We need to follow him, which can get tricky because certain doors and rooms are blocked. If we keep going, though, we'll catch sight of him. This leads to the pantry, which has 2 entrances, but the room's been divided by strings, which we can't chop through with our pointy shovel or a kitchen knife or a meat cleaver. Video games, am I right? So we've just got to go the long way around. The generator lever is on the floor. Back to the generator room, replace the lever, and then head back to the lift. Jennifer takes it up to the upper floor and climbs the ladder, but instead of arriving on top of the airship as she did before, which was already weird enough, this time she climbs up into a field at night. Amanda is there in a hollowed out section of this huge rock formation, beating on something with a stick.
Oh, Jennifer. You know what? I've got something special. Look, isn't he cute? Here, it's yours. Give it as a gift and you'll be Miss Popular again.
So we see that Amanda's beating up a Jennifer doll that she's made, which sort of explains why we saw it as Jennifer's body earlier. This visual trickery, exchanging character models for toys, will be used later on as well. Jennifer faints and wakes up back inside the airship. The teddy bear has been stolen by the boy, and she's rejoined by Brown. Down below on the middle deck, we have to follow the boy around the broken walkways. Again, Jennifer can use the bear tail to have Brown lead the way. At several junction points, we're forced into combat with multiple enemies, which is awful, fighting in such tight spaces. Make it through all of that, and the only thing that happens is Jennifer gets led to another lift, and all the way back to the Aristocrats Club. So aside from all that combat being annoying, it was also superfluous. Only thrown in because I guess the devs figured we haven't suffered through enough of their terrible forced combat sequences yet. Cruelty towards the player. Joshua is sitting in the hallway that leads to the Aristocrats Club. After Jennifer drops him into the offering box, she's pulled inside.
Come here, Jennifer.
let's have a little talk. She's the one who stole it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Aristocrat Club. A word from the princess. Jennifer has brought a wonderful gift to the Aristocrat Club.
Now you can have your very own red crayon. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. Hats off to you. Hats off to you.
No, please.
Hello, boys and girls. How are we today? Waste paper should go in the rubbish bin and washing should go into the filth room. It's time to spring clean our home. Everyone bring your brushes and dustpans and jam around. Do I make myself clear, children?
Once again, Jennifer finds herself tied up, this time back in the orphanage. She calls for Brown, who helps her get free. Afterwards, she picks up the red crayon on the ground, the mark of an aristocrat. This chapter takes place entirely in the orphanage, which we only got a glimpse of abandoned in the very beginning of the game. Now it's well lit, a crisp November afternoon, and we can fully explore the place. Jennifer heads downstairs and finds Mr. Hoffman, the headmaster, giving the children their cleaning assignments. He tells Jennifer to come to his office later. Using the red crayon, Brown will lead Jennifer to the basement, to the cell of repentance where she finds the aristocrat's pledge. There are other cells down here as well, like the cell of solitude and the cell of pleasure with a film projector. The cell of bliss has several dolls that look like the imp children, encircling another doll being hanged. The cell of remorse holds the belongings of the orphans, as well as a lumberjack axe, the best normal weapon in the game. Why are all these rooms in an orphanage referred to as cells? As of right now, there's no clear objective, so Jennifer can freely wander the orphanage. When Jennifer visits the headmaster's room, there's a fish tank in the corner. Mr. Hoffman doesn't really have anything to say to her.
You dirty wretch. Why are you always trying to get out of work? Can't you do your job like all the other children?
What we need to be doing here is visiting different rooms in the orphanage to trigger specific events. The rooms you need to explore can be visited in any order. This is how it played out for me. Up in the play area, Jennifer finds a boy playing with a train, along with this incredibly creepy painting. When Jennifer checks on him, the boy puts the train through his legs, and the narrator says the arrival station of the mischievous prince's train did not have the girl's name on it. Make of that what you will. After leaving, a crumpled note is thrown at Jennifer that reads, "Jennifer the Thief." The next thing that happened for me was Jennifer got pushed down some stairs on her way to the entrance hall. Then I kind of wandered around aimlessly. You know what would have been nice? Having the orphanage map that you can pick up right in the beginning of the game. You know, the item I mentioned I missed completely, so I just had to construct a mental map of the orphanage as I dicked around here. Talking to Bucket Knight and asking him for a hint was interesting. He says, "If memory serves me correctly," already a phrase that's dubious considering the events of the game, "you didn't care if you were scolded for being late. Everyone else was good. You were the only bad one. That's your role here. Everyone lives happily together except you. No one cares about you. Watch them all and see for yourself. That's your only clue." Damn, Bucket Knight, you really gonna do me like that? I stumbled into the dormitory later and found Diana, who doesn't even acknowledge Jennifer's presence, but we get another note from that. This one reads, "Apologize by dying." I found the sewing room where Amanda is sewing fiercely, probably making her Jennifer doll. The crumpled paper that gets thrown Jennifer's way reads, "You get what you deserve." In the library, Meg and another girl are cleaning and won't show Jennifer what's in the book they've found. The crumpled note here reads, oh, for fuck's sake, pick the damn thing up. It reads, "Beggar plus thief equals terrible Jennifer." Eleanor is out on the balcony, again ignoring Jennifer. At the end of the hallway, a final note gets thrown. "Come to the hall."
Boys and girls, cleaning time is over. Waste paper should go in the rubbish bin and washing should go into the filth room. Are the rooms all spick and span? Are the halls all sparkling clean? It's almost time for bed. Diana, Eleanor, Xavier, Meg, Susan, Nicola, Thomas, Clara, Olivia. Be thankful for this wonderful day and let us pray for an even better day tomorrow. Get ready for bed and may you have a good night's rest.
The orphanage is now populated by many enemies. Jennifer needs to get to the inner courtyard. Wendy is out there beckoning to her, but the door is blocked with drawings acting sort of like seals. 2 mice, 2 goats, and 2 pigs. Despite the fact that there are many enemies, Jennifer only needs to hunt down and kill these 6, which is a pain in the ass. I couldn't figure out any way to use Brown to track down the specific enemies, so it was just a matter of exploring the entire orphanage top to bottom and running past all the enemies that didn't matter. When she finally makes it out to the inner courtyard, Wendy and a large wooden casket are waiting. Wendy comments on how Brown is Jennifer's new friend and that he's filthy but adorable. She then tells Jennifer that there's going to be an aristocrat club meeting later. On top of the casket, Jennifer finally finds the funeral storybook. Once upon a time, a girl found a hole in the ground in the yard. The little people came out and told her the news. Today is the day of your funeral. If you don't like it, then you must sacrifice your friend. Who wants to be buried alive? So the girl did what she had to and buried her best friend. Well, I wouldn't want to be her best friend. Afterwards, we hear Brown yelp, and all the imps vanish. The orphanage is now completely empty. We were told there was an aristocrats club meeting, so I guess that's where we're heading. Along the way, Jennifer continues to hear Brown whining, calling for help. You can see Brown at several moments. It's definitely his character model, but when Jennifer investigates, it turns out it's only a broken toy dog. Oh, and I finally found the orphanage map. Hooray. There's also a room in the attic called Attic Storage, which contains a dried flower wreath and a note that reads, 1. Build computer. 2. Sell computer. Jennifer can't pick up either of these things. They're just there. And computer? In 1930? What the hell? I tried researching this afterwards and I could not find anything about this note. I couldn't even find a forum post of anyone talking about this note. It's so weird. Maybe some kind of developer in-joke. Anyway, Jennifer's destination is of course the aristocrat's club room. The note on the door says this month's gift is filthy brown. Now let me just pause here. I am going to show this next cutscene in its entirety. And I know I've already put a sensitive content warning in this video, but the very beginning of this next scene is cruel and heartbreaking. It's not violent or anything, but it can be hard to look at. And those that follow this channel know I am a dog lover. And I thought long and hard about whether to just skip over the beginning of this cutscene, but I feel like Rule of Rose's story has artistic merit, and it would be a cop-out not to give you the full weight of what's happening here. If you really don't want to see it though, skip to this time on screen, which is still within the next cutscene, so you can follow the story, but it passes over the beginning images. Fair warning. Here we go.
Your friend is in the bag. It's too late now. My friend! Give me back my friend! Liar! Go away! Just go away! Never forgive you! Not ever! And as for the rest of you, how could you believe all those lies? Aristocrats! You're just the opposite. I hate you, and I hate you, and you! And I hate myself the very most for playing your stupid games and not having the strength to stand up to you! It's all just hideous!
There's a really important thing to unpack here, as we get concrete confirmation that everything Jennifer has been experiencing is in fact part of a mechanism of recovering memories and processing childhood trauma. The game, of course, gives very overt hints that this is what's going on throughout, but Jennifer's reversion back to her child body during this scene makes it crystal clear, which, by the way, I just have to say is brilliantly done. One thing I didn't quite understand on my first playthrough, and again, I'll remind you that I went into this game totally blind, is why all these kids were able to bully this young adult. Getting to this scene for the first time made it all fall into place for me. Jennifer is only seen as a young adult to reinforce the fact that these things happened in her past, and that even as an adult, she's been stunted, unable to process and move past the awful things that happened to her. It also allows the visuals to add layers of surrealism to the presentation. And there are subtle moments like Diana needing to use a chair to pat Jennifer on the head when she gets the red crayon. In reality, Diana was older, at least a teenager, and would have towered over child Jennifer, and this is how she remembers it. even as an adult. We're told, through a storybook in the beginning of the game, that Jennifer's parents were killed in an airship crash. That accident led to her time in the orphanage and was the catalyst of her misery, which is why the two locations are interlinked. Also, we get some clues throughout that the children used to imagine that they were on an airship, usually depicted as a giant fish in their drawings. Jennifer, of course, wasn't a fan of this game, and it's unclear whether they imagined an airship because the orphanage was close to Cardington, where airships were built, so maybe they saw them often, or if it came about as a result of the airship crash that took Jennifer's parents' lives. Just another cruel jab at her. Either way, Rule of Rose is a game about memory, but specifically the warping, tenuous quality of memory, especially memories that have been tainted by grief and trauma. In many stories that frame themselves through flashbacks, these moments from the past are meant to be accepted as reality, an objective truth, but this isn't the case in Rule of Rose. For some events, it's clear that details have been twisted, locations confused, childhood fears expanded and transfigured. Any sense of an objective present also isn't used as a framing device in Rule of Rose's narrative. From the beginning, you're thrust into Jennifer's fragile psyche without prelude or ceremony. But even the memories that feel like they may be happening with some level of clarity may not be as reliable as they seem. There's also Jennifer's own wishes and desires to keep in mind. Her own defense mechanisms at play. Did she really stand up to the aristocrats in the end, when they killed her best friend? Or does she only wish that she did? Was her proclamation that she hates everyone, especially herself, for not having the strength to stand up to them, what the young Jennifer actually said, or a breakthrough for adult Jennifer? Maybe because we're actually seeing Jennifer in her child body in this scene, it's meant to be the actual events as they happened. But we'll find at the end that we might not be able to trust that interpretation. The final, maybe we'll get to that, chapter in the game takes place in December. Stray Dog and the Lying Princess. Outside at the front gate, the man waits. In her room in the orphanage, Jennifer finds this chapter's storybook. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who told lies. She liked to scare the other girls by screaming, "Stray dog is coming! Stray dog is coming!" But soon, everyone stopped being scared. They hated the way that she lied. One day, the girl came home screaming, "Stray dog is coming! Really?" Everyone thought it was just another lie. Except this time, it was no lie at all. And so they were all gobbled up. The end. In the classroom, the girls declare that Jennifer is the new leader of the Aristocrats Club, but someone spots Wendy outside, so they all run off to see. As Jennifer makes her way downstairs, she hears the girls' screams. The front doors open, and the young boy and the man, now stripped down to his skivvies and crawling on all fours with a rope around his neck, are there. The boy points at Jennifer, and the stray dog attacks. Yes, the man was the monster stray dog. We'll break this down more in a moment. For now, it's time for a boss fight. The axe is your friend, and as with most fights, it's just a matter of staying behind him. And watch out when he rears up to attack. He can hit Jennifer with that even if she's standing behind. Brown also rejoins Jennifer about halfway through the fight, which is welcome, but also a bit weird. Maybe this could point to the ending of the last chapter when she chose to stand up to the other children. It wasn't something that actually happened, but in doing so, within her mind, Jennifer has protected her memory of Brown as an adult, which is why he can come back to her in this moment. I'm not sure, just another theory I'm throwing out here. Once the fight is over, out front, the only thing that's left of the other children are their clothes scattered around the yard. The boy appears behind Jennifer. He rips off what turns out to be a wig, revealing that the boy was Wendy all along, and around her collar a green string, just like the teddy bear, Joshua. Joshua.
My name is Joshua.
In the Gingerbread House, in the study, there's a diary written by a man named Gregory. Gregory Wilson, as the newspaper articles about the orphanage murders informed us. He was a poor pea farmer who lived near the Rose Garden orphanage. He had a son named Joshua. The diary is written in short, terse sentences. What use does a pea farmer have for flowery prose? The journal details Gregory's struggles with farming and raising enough money for him and his son to survive. Joshua grows ill. Gregory makes picture books and reads them to his bedridden son. Joshua tells his father that he liked the latest story. Nothing pleases Gregory more than to see his son happy. Gregory tends to his fields. Work goes well. Gregory's diary entries are written throughout the month of June. No year is given. Much like how no year is given in June when the Gingerbread House chapter takes place. All the other chapters in the game are clearly labeled with the year 1930. At some point, either during these diary entries or after, Joshua died. Life can be cruel. At some point, either during these diary entries or after, the airship that Jennifer and her parents were traveling on crashed in a field near the orphanage. There were no survivors. Life can be cruel. Save for one girl, and in the midst of his grief for his lost son, Gregory found that girl, took her to his home, dressed her as a boy, kept her locked in a basement bedroom, and called her by his son's name, Joshua. Life can be cruel. Until one day, a girl from the nearby orphanage found the girl dressed as a boy locked in the basement bedroom, and the two became friends. The orphan girl even helped the girl dressed as a boy escape. Life can be cruel. It was sweet for a time, but the orphanage turned out to be not much better than captivity. Any sunny day or ray of hope was quickly dashed until all that was left were rotten memories, buried deep, left to fester. The final battle can play out two ways. Jennifer can defeat Gregory the same way she's defeated all the bosses in the game. Oh, also the gun only has one bullet and it doesn't actually do anything. This will result in the bad ending, with just a text crawl about how Jennifer ended up alone and unlucky, unable to keep her promise or save anyone, with Joshua, or actually Wendy's, laughter in the background. Conversely, you can wait around during the fight. After a short while, Gregory will get on his knees and say,
"I'm sorry, Joshua."
When that happens, you can run up to Gregory, open the inventory, and use the gun instead of equipping it. This will put us on the path to the good ending.
I'm sorry, Joshua. Yes.
In this final chapter, only accessible by giving Gregory the gun, we play as child Jennifer in the orphanage in January 1930, before the events of most of the previous chapters. A storybook is on the bed, full of drawings, no words. There are letters on the bookshelf that were exchanged between Wendy and Jennifer. They're dated, but there's no year written on them. They detail Wendy and Jennifer's friendship, with the arrival of Brown causing Wendy to become jealous. Such a filthy dog is not a good match for you and me. Just give it to Nicholas or something, and let's be content with just the two of us. Is Brown that important to you? It's just a dog, a filthy animal. Please stop sharing your wonderful smile with that thing. Please smile only at me. Jennifer the Heartless, why didn't you come? I waited and waited for you. Why can't I see you every morning? I think only of you. Are you avoiding me? Jennifer comments on Wendy's loneliness and wonders if any of the letters she had written ever reached Wendy. You can explore the orphanage. Even though the title card said this chapter takes place in January 1930, the orphanage is in ruins. As you wander the halls and rooms, you can hear the other children playing and whispering Jennifer's name.
Janet.
But they're nowhere to be found. A shirt and bucket hanging on a wall look to Jennifer like a scarecrow, swaying in the breeze, like her. A cowardly girl who was unable to assert her true feelings. You can also find some items that can be used in a second playthrough, since there's technically a New Game Plus. That's how we unlock the 4-leaf clover door on the airship, actually, and inside are a bunch of bonus outfits and weapons. Pretty superfluous, but you know, it's a nice bonus. Our destination is outside, where Jennifer finds Wendy drawing in the dirt. The two kiss each other on the forehead and curtsy, but when Jennifer leaves the yard, the gate closes behind her, leaving Wendy alone. The symbolic nature of this event and what's about to follow is why I said earlier that even though we see child Jennifer standing up to the aristocrats in the earlier cutscene, it's not clear whether or not that's definitive proof of what actually happened in the past. Back down the path that we took in the beginning of the game, Jennifer hears the whine of a puppy. Turning at the fork to the rickety shed, Jennifer finds the broken padlock and inside is reunited with Brown. On the chalkboard she writes the words, "Everlasting true love, I am yours," and promises, "My dear friend, I never want to lose you again. I'll protect you forever and ever until I die." I believe this final scene is a wish, to keep Brown in the shed, never take him to the orphanage, never lead him to his cruel fate. It's already happened, but Jennifer can try to preserve this moment. She can't save Brown, but at the very least, she can protect his memory. It would be easy to view the members of the Aristocrats Club as simple antagonists, a group of jealous children who bullied, tortured, and humiliated Jennifer, killed her beloved canine friend. But as I mentioned way back in the beginning of the video, when I was talking about the ways the children probably could have been seen as scarier and more threatening during the game, there are reasons why they aren't viewed that way. The biggest one being that they're children. Orphan children suffering any number of abuses from the adults around them that are supposed to be protecting them. They've known nothing in their lives but ridicule and cruelty, and so they act that way toward Jennifer, a girl who at one time had parents parents who were most likely of a higher social standing, if they could afford to fly on an airship for leisure. These facts alone make Jennifer a prime target of their hazing. It's revealed that Wendy is the de facto leader of the group, so maybe at first Jennifer was spared. Amanda sure wasn't, according to her diary. After Wendy rescued Jennifer from Gregory and brought her to the orphanage, things seemed to be okay for a while. Speaking of Gregory, there are several clues in the game that could lead you to believe he's kidnapping children. The fact that he's revealed to be the stray dog in the end, the kids' reference to him and how he gives sweets, the newspaper articles about child abductions found in the toy room of his house, not to mention the creepy story he recites about finding peas, grinding them up and burying them. But then again, it's unclear whether or not these are just coincidences. His house has many mysterious details. It seems pretty clear, though, that Joshua was his son and that he loved him very much. So all of the stray dog kidnapper clues could be red herrings. Although he did go nuts and kill everyone at the end, so who knows. It's one of the most fascinating and ambiguous parts of the entire story. Back to Jennifer and the orphanage, though. After some time, Jennifer discovered Brown and turned her attention away from her friendship with Wendy. With what we know about Jennifer's character, she probably wasn't a big fan of the cruelty of the aristocrats to begin with. And as she began to spend more and more time with Brown, Wendy grew jealous. A lifetime of punishment probably led her to believe that Jennifer should be punished, cleansed of her relationship with that filthy animal, so that Wendy would once again be the center of attention. And so, well, now we know what happened. Those moments in the very beginning of the opening cutscene, Jennifer waking up in the rose garden, seeing Brown, reaching out to pet him, getting distracted by the girls playing, who it turns out were Wendy and Jennifer, turning back to see Brown gone, the airship that casts its shadow over the whole scene. The symbolism all makes sense now, and it makes these tiny moments all the more heartbreaking. There are a few other loose ends to tie up, and unfortunately I don't really know where else to talk about them without breaking up the flow of the earlier segments of the video, so I'll just dump a couple of important ones here. Those imps. Who were they? They could be other orphans not mentioned by name. That newspaper report about the night in December does mention that all the children of the orphanage were killed, but there sure are a lot of them that show up throughout the game, and not that many children when we're actually in the orphanage toward the end. They often show up in cutscenes to clean, but more often they show up during gameplay when Jennifer is about to discover something related to her past, usually near the end of chapters. So they could represent the repression of Jennifer's traumatic memories. Concerning the last night at the orphanage, neither Mr. Hoffman nor Martha the cleaning lady are mentioned among the dead in the newspaper article, so it's unclear if they were present that night when Gregory, as the stray dog, attacked. But why wouldn't they be? We also witnessed their brutal deaths earlier in the game, Martha being beaten and contorted and Hoffman being bound and then killed by Jennifer. Was there some kind of coup the kids staged? Or is this Jennifer's desire to punish the adults who were supposed to protect them? If that's the case, why does she kill Clara, the mermaid? Mr. Hoffman, Clara, and Gregory are the only boss fights in the game. And speaking of the Gregory fight, it seems that Wendy, dressed as Joshua, convinced this grown man to crawl on all fours and come to the orphanage where he went nuts and ended the lives of a bunch of orphaned kids. Was he that broken by Joshua's death? Was there some kind of mental illness at play before the death of his son? His diary has very simple writing, but then again, he was a pea farmer in the 1930s, maybe not the most highly educated person. I don't know. I'm just asking lingering questions here. I don't have any answers to this stuff. Any thoughts you have or evidence in-game that I may have missed to explain some of these things would be greatly appreciated in the comments. There are probably many other things that I didn't comment on or missed that are worth discussing or have been discussed in other people's videos or write-ups about this game. I did only play through the game twice, and it feels like you could play Rule of Rose dozens of times and still find new details or new avenues of interpretation. There's the rub though. Playing Rule of Rose. While I think the story is superb, just one of the most complex, disturbing, moving, and intricately told stories in not only survival horror, but in video games as a whole. The game itself is painful. The poor controls, the badly designed combat, the repetitive gameplay loop, and drab environmental design, outside of a few standout moments, it all makes for a terrible game. The argument will forever be, is it worth suffering through the actual game to get to experience the story? That's a tough one. Even though I think Rule of Rose's gameplay is incredibly flawed, the game has something more to offer beyond just its cutscenes. It's in the disorienting experience of playing it. The fact that many of its clues to unlocking the greater narrative are hidden in newspaper clippings and diary entries that the player might not find. And the journey through all of that pain and cruelty to get to one of the most emotionally affecting endings I've ever witnessed in a video game. Still though, I can't really say if it's worth it for you to play it or not. For me, it was, but then again, I knew I wanted to make a video in the end. And like I said in the beginning, I'm weird and like wrestling with terrible gameplay. Others may not be up to that task. Rule of Rose is clunky, at times dull, and others controller-tossingly frustrating, but it holds one of the greatest treasures in any medium, a story that makes you feel something. And if you've never played it before and watched this whole video, well then, I guess you already made your decision. And yes, with that, I think I can say, that's it for Rule of Rose. Thank you very much for watching. What a monumental undertaking this video was. I honestly don't know what I was thinking trying to do this video in 2 weeks, and I'm hoping that the crunch didn't hurt the quality of the video or hurt my analysis of the game, because yes, Rule of Rose is a bad game, but it has one of the best stories, so I just hope I did it justice. Anyway, if you liked the video or got anything out of it in any way, shape, or form, please like it, leave a comment, share it wherever and with whomever you can. All those things help me out immensely. YouTube's algorithm is a cruel mistress, in keeping with the cruelty theme. Ad revenue, similarly so. So if you really like and appreciate what I do and you can spare anything extra, please consider becoming a patron by clicking the link in the description below, or by clicking the join button on this page to become a YouTube member. You can join all these fine people scrolling on screen and become a dungeon dweller. They get to watch videos a couple of days early, get updates from me, vote in polls on what games I cover from time to time, and they get access to the Dungeon Dwellers Archive, a playlist of shorter videos that are only available to supporters. I have 2 of them so far, a video on Kawaii Shashin for the PS1, and a video on Mansion of Hidden Souls for Sega CD and The Mansion of Hidden Souls for Saturn. So become a Dungeon Dweller, support a creator, get access to all that stuff. If you donate $5 or more each month, you get your name read out loud at the end of videos like these Dungeon Architects. Antichrist Alex, Benifer94, Blake Golan, Bliblio Jones, Chaos Arcanum, Dan, Danny Kilpatrick, David Carr, David Host, Delatar Tepes, Dirt Possum, Dollar Store DJ, El Jaguar, Eugene, Glen Haven, Goats and Goblins, Half HP, High Food Court, Izzy Lexus, J-Bud Airline, John B, John Paul Williams, Joshua Ayers, Justin Darnell, Kale, Captain Ketchup, Kevin Hanley, Krizik, Crunk Wizard, Kyowa, Lunar Vale, Meownarchy, Micah Powers, Mr. Loser, Mr. Eater, Nick Wolf, Nom Daguerre, Rez, Richard Cutting, Richard Sanchez, Richort 12, Rog U, Shannon Gates, Shivering Dova, Sigma Simp 69, The Stoic One, Vinci, and White Like Eyes, as well as these dungeon connoisseurs: Alberto Amatucci, Alexis Barragan, Alfred Correa, Andy Rahman, Andrew Tovanidi, Andy Kaiju, Anjin01, Aronai Sayes, Arrested Rabbit, Burger Von Burger, Bewildering Avocado, Big Farty Nuts, Blue Mantis, Boneside, Bunzo, Captain Swing, Churm Slurm, Clara Myers, Concrete Mascara, Crassus Zero, Crippler Jones, Dale Walden, Daniel Tallow, Daphne, Days Clockwork, Dikadiko, Doroko, Deus Ex Brachina, Devil's Honey, Dr. Jellybean, Drebo Bebop, Dungeon Chili, Fangro, Glitterthroat, Hokon Boyum, Harvey Bodega, Icehammer 82, Indigo Happy, Irregular Rob, It's a Mia, Nekokami, Jack Roberts, James Chambers, James Ray, Jason Cook, Gemma, Joan Valise, Jogoth Jollybean, Joshua Weber, Karen Rosenau, Clint, Lady Nagram, Leica Come Home, Lampshader, Liana, Lux Custodes, Mira, Macrophage, Man with Confetti, Masakishi, Matthew Wall, Matt Nored, Mick Eldritch, Meatman, Michael Oliver, Minced Meat, Miss M, Mr. Independent, Monkey Kid 61, Not Poncho Esquire, Nicolas Polstar, Noel the Monkey, Old Dead Lemons, Olaf Albine. Please keep making videos. Prince Goof, Ribbon Black, Roland, Sable, Salty Groove, Sensei Wolfman, Shart King, Sean, Ciceren, Skyclad Weeb, Slycat, Solar, Sorbet, Spencer Newton, T, Talonidu, Taylor Martin, TCB, Tor Dragon, True Axiom, Tuesday Twin, TV's Brent, Violet the Insatiable, Warrior Song, Where Am I? Help, Wolfenheim, Zach Diedrich, and Zorik. Thank you all for your support, and, once again, thank you for watching. I'm going to take my time on the next video, try to decompress a little after this one, so I'll catch you all when that one's ready. Until then, Rule of Rose, check it out. Dungeon Chill, out.